Okay. I have this idea for the next episode of Should I Feel Strongly About Stuff. It's a little preachy though. Can I just run some ideas by you and like see how to kind of convey it? I'm not sure. I think it might ruffle some feathers, and I want to talk about it a little bit. What's up? So my idea is to talk about toning, and the misconceptions with it, and why it's kind of dumb in a way. But I also don't want to diminish the fact that I understand what toning is and what the look people are looking for, but I want to go over the common misconceptions and the manipulative marketing toward women primarily, but also men, in terms of toning. Examples like booty toning workout or arm toning workout and how to go about it. And that's kind of what I want to go through with this, but I don't want it to seem too ranty or too preachy. It's probably going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm not really sure. What do you think about that? Should I do it? Just fucking do it. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Meghan Wieser again, physio coach at Recharge. And this is episode 2 of Should I Feel Strongly About? And as funny as that little introduction was, it is actually the subject of today's episode. So we're going to talk about toning, and you guys have heard that concept before in relation to physique and how people should look, getting toned, how to get toned, what toning is, all that. And I just want to start off by saying I hate that word. The reason I don't like the word toning, aside from the manipulative marketing that people use for it, and how it's somewhat a way to feminize the word muscular, but imply that women shouldn't be too muscular. I've had conversations with friends, with women in my life, and there's just a lot of misconceptions about what that look is. I want to kind of dispel some misconceptions and misinformation out there surrounding the word tone. Here's why this is an issue. It's a bigger issue here, and I feel like I'm kind of scratching at the edge of it, but I'm just going to say it. The people refer to women as being toned and men being more muscular, and people are afraid to say the word muscular around women because it implies that they are bigger. And the world is just trying to constantly make women take up less space and make them smaller and smaller, which is an issue. From a mental standpoint, from just a health standpoint, people have been constantly for years just trying to make women smaller and having them eat less, having them move more, but having them do it in unhealthy ways, in ways that are not actually getting them to reach their goals, from a physique standpoint and from a life health standpoint. I'm not diminishing the fact that men are somewhat affected by this. I think we've reached a point in the, political climate, the societal climate, where women are kind of being more empowered by their peers, and they're pushing forward, and we're kind of losing sight of the men's side of mental health. So I'm not dismissing that. But I do see this problem a little bit more with women, and I've been personally asked and approached by women, so that's kind of where this is coming from. Women are constantly trying to be put in this like perfectly shaped box, not a box. Constantly, women are put into this perfectly shaped box, and people are constantly trying to say, you should look this way, you need to look this way, you are never going to be able to do X if you don't look like Y. But we don't always hear that on the men's side of things. I mean, the dad bods were even celebrated for a while. So there's less judgment and I guess projection of emotional desire on what a dude should look like than there is for a woman. I'm going to go through a couple of the misconceptions and misinformation surrounding what it means to be toned or to get toned. The first being the messages that you're getting around all the marketing with toning workouts or toning programs or toning supplements, God forbid. You never see this toning marketing culture or the narrative encouraging strength training or building muscle mass. And God forbid you touch a weight, you're going to bulk up. but that's not always the case. In order to increase muscle mass, you need to fuel the muscles so that they can grow, which means you need to eat. And you also need to give those muscles enough stress so that there's some level of physiological adaptation. And what I mean by that is strength training. So if you saw our first video talking about skill development, we talked about progressive overload and volume. And those two, I think, tie in really well with this. You need to lift weights. And you need to lift moderately heavy weights and do them consistently. And global body movements, you can do accessory movements, whatever. That also involves specific lifting and purposeful loading of the muscle tissue. So when you see typical toning workouts or toning programs out there, a lot of them are very arbitrary movements, and they're usually underloaded and underdosed. And what I mean by that is they're having you do like curtsy lunges in your living room, which is fine, but that's not going to get you to this toned look that these programs market for. You need to be doing the bigger lifts. You need to not be afraid of doing the bigger lifts and doing them moderately heavy and consistently. A lot of people associate barbell movements or kettlebell movements, dumbbell movements, etc., that whole section of the gym. A lot of people associate that with just being, a man-specific activity. But there's no men's and women's lift, right? Like, there's no gender-specific muscle tissue. Muscle is muscle, and it is going to change based on the stimulus that you provide it, which involves protein, carbs, fats, and a crap ton of heavy loading consistently and purposefully over time. So your response to me telling you to lift a bunch of heavy things is probably, but Weez, I don't want to bulk up. And I'm going to say, you're not going to freaking bulk up, relax. But realistically, as a woman, it's how many women do you know in your life, in real life, not on Instagram or an elite level athlete? How many women do you know in your life that are your definition of bulky? It's probably very few. And that's not to say that that body type is bad, right? Like, the people who look that way are probably proud as hell of what their body is capable of. And that's what that shows. It's kind of like a badge of honor. But going back to the bulky thing, it's really hard for women and men to really get that look. It takes so much time, so much specific calorie manipulation, and a lot of consistency over time with specific lifts to get that look. And it's really hard for women to get that look. This is when there is somewhat of a difference between men and women, because we have different hormonal makeups, and there's different compounds in our body that change the way we respond to strength training versus men. It doesn't mean it's a negative response. It's different. And it's going to take so much time, probably more time than you have at this point, to reach whatever a bulky definition or look looks like to you. And again, that look is also fine. There's no specific way to look. Again, that goes back to the world trying to put women and people in boxes and looking a certain way. There is no perfect look for anybody. Fit is not a look. Fit is what your body is capable of. The toning programs that are out there kind of set people up for failure in a way. Like, you're starting these because you want this physique, you want to have more defined muscles, and you want to have less body fat. But the programs out there you start them, and then you never get those results. And those programs are often like, get toned in 30 days with these workouts or these exercises, or tone your arms with these 3 exercises in 7 days or something. And it sets you up for this incredibly frustrating cycle and demoralizing cycle of you getting ready to do this, putting in the work, and then realizing 30 days later, like, what the hell? I don't look that way. I don't look the way I want to look. And that's because there's so many misconceptions about that. Those programs are largely underdosed and underloaded. Where I've actually been asked, like by my mom even. I've been asked by a lot of people, how do I tone my arms? How do I tone my legs? How do I tone my abs or my torso? I hate to be the person to bear bad news here, but you cannot choose where you lose fat mass. Sorry. You can't choose where you're going to lose fat from. That's where like the global calories in versus calories out equation comes into play a little bit. It's also the makeup of those calories, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. You can't choose where you're going to lose things. You can choose where to prioritize your lifts, but you just can't choose where the fat comes off. Sorry. So bringing it all back to what this entire episode is about, toning. How do you actually get that look? Decrease fat mass and increase muscle mass. And any journey or any road to changing your physique or progressing your physique, for whatever reason, always needs to start with your mindset first, right? Like, why are you doing this? There needs to be a good purpose behind it. And also being realistic. There's a time component to everything. So these 30-day workouts, nothing's going to happen in 30 days, except for maybe you developing a habit and getting into the swing of things. But that is way too quick to develop that kind of physique, to the expectation that you probably have set for yourself and that the programs have probably set for yourself. But in order to decrease fat mass and to increase muscle mass, there needs to be some level of manipulation of calories, and likely protein and carbohydrate as well, just because generally speaking, most people aren't taking in enough protein to allow for muscle adaptation. And you need to lift heavy and lift consistently and purposefully. And there needs to be like a progressive program, which may mean it's a little boring at first. The body likes novelty, and novelty is okay, but some things need to be progressive over time and consistent. On that note, timing, everybody is going to be a little bit different. Me doing the same workouts as you, we're going to end up with two completely different physiques just because of genetics. Some people are born with as a high responder to strength training, and some people are born as low responders to strength training. And what that means is the low responder is probably going to need more time and more stimulus to elicit the same amount of change as the person who is a high responder. And that is just genetics. You can't change your DNA, sorry. And you're never going to really know that until trying it out, which may mean there's some level of disappointment or comparison, which I never really like, but it's human nature. We compare ourselves to people all the time. But genetics plays a bigger role than you probably think in you trying to get a more toned physique or a more muscular physique and trying to decrease fat mass. Your genetics dictate how your body responds to everything. So everything works for someone, but nothing works for everyone. So you and a friend following the same exact macronutrient profile, eating the same exact foods, same times of day, doing the same exact workouts, same times of day, are going to end up with two different physiques, two different feels, just because you're two different people. Toning, I don't hate the word because of what the look is. I hate the word because of the manipulative marketing that has surrounded it and the narrative created around the toned look for years and years and years, and the way society kind of perceives it, and again, places women in their little boxes. So go eat some food and go lift some heavy crap. I'm also kind of curious, does this resonate with you? Have you experienced stuff like this before? I know I definitely have. So leave a comment below, give us or let us know if you don't want to leave that publicly, because I'd love to start the conversation around this stuff. I think this needs to be talked about a little bit more. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.